On July 5, 1942, a single order scattered a convoy across the Arctic ice, and 153 ships paid the price. The British Navy had a problem. Germany controlled the skies over the Arctic, and the Soviet Union was bleeding. Stalin demanded supplies, ammunition, tanks, food. So the Royal Navy assembled Convoy PQ-17, 36 merchant vessels, loaded with 200,000 tons of war material, sailing from Iceland toward Arkhangelsk. It should have been routine. It wasn't. The convoy was protected. Escorting them were 4 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and a handful of destroyers. The plan was sound. The weather was manageable. But intelligence reports arriving at the Admiralty in London painted a terrifying picture. The German battleship Tirpitz had left its Norwegian port. The most dangerous warship afloat was hunting in the Arctic. Admiral John Tovey, commanding the Royal Navy's Arctic forces, knew what Tirpitz could do. 1 battleship, 36 defenseless merchant ships. The math was brutal, but Tovey believed the escort was strong enough. He believed in the plan. He was about to be overruled. On July 4th, the Admiralty received another report. Tirpitz had sailed. Panic rippled through London's war rooms. The First Sea Lord, Admiral Dudley Pound, made a decision that would echo through naval history. He ordered the close escort to withdraw. The heavy cruisers, the destroyers, all of them. The convoy would scatter, sail independently, fend for themselves. Admiral Tovey was stunned. He protested. He knew scattering the convoy in enemy waters was suicide, but Pound's order was absolute. At 9:23 p.m. on July 5th, the signal went out. The convoy dissolved into chaos, 36 ships, suddenly alone, heading in different directions across open Arctic water. What happened next was a slaughter. German U-boats, waiting in the waters ahead, found scattered targets instead of a defended formation. A sitting gallery, ships began to sink. The Azerbaijan, the Alamosa, the Arctic, one after another, torpedoed, burning, broken. Survivors clung to lifeboats in sub-zero temperatures. Most didn't last long. The German surface fleet never engaged. Tirpitz never fired a shot. The damage was done by submarines and aircraft alone. By the time the convoy reached Soviet waters, 24 ships had been sunk. Over 3,000 sailors lost. Hundreds of tons of tanks, planes, and ammunition lay at the bottom of the Barents Sea. The disaster was catastrophic, but the Navy needed someone to blame, and they found their target, Admiral Tovey, the man who'd fought the order, the man who'd warned them. Somehow his prescience became his crime. The official inquiry blamed Tovey for not preventing the disaster. They ignored that he'd been overruled. They ignored that Pound had panicked. Tovey became the scapegoat, the convenient villain, in a story where the real culprit was bureaucratic fear and a fatal miscalculation at the top. Pound, the man who'd issued the disastrous order, faced no court-martial. He died in 1943. Some say the stress of his decisions hastened his end. Tovey lived until 1971, carrying the weight of a catastrophe he tried to prevent. The truth eventually surfaced. Historians and naval experts agreed. Scattering the convoy was indefensible. It violated every principle of naval escort doctrine. Pound's decision, driven by fear of a phantom threat, had been the real disaster. But by then, Tovey's reputation had been damaged. The official record had been written. And in the fog of war and politics, the wrong man had carried the blame for one of the Royal Navy's greatest failures. Convoy PQ-17 remains a haunting reminder of what happens when fear overrides judgment, when panic replaces strategy, when those at the top make decisions without understanding their human cost. 24 ships, 3,000 lives, and a single order that changed everything. The convoy's survivors eventually reached their destination. The supplies, what little remained, reached Soviet ports, but the Arctic had claimed its price, and the Navy had claimed its scapegoat. History, however, has rendered its own verdict. Subscribe, we uncover the untold stories of maritime disasters the history books got wrong.